I don't know. Tattooing's all about people, man. It's all about the experience. You could do a bad tattoo on someone. If you give them a great experience, they're going to love you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do that all the time. Just kidding. Just kidding. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Books Closed. Thank you for joining me. I'm your host, Andrew Stortz. I've really been enjoying all the discussion I'm seeing around episode 54 titled, Is This the Tattoo Apocalypse? It's been cool to read all of your comments since it's a pretty complex topic that has plenty of room for all of the contrasting opinions. In our last episode, I spoke to Leo Zulueta, and he told the story about getting his first tattoo from Mike Malone. When he got it, he didn't know who Mike was, and it was a pretty serendipitous experience in hindsight. While I was making that episode, I was watching through some old tattoo-related videos, and with a little serendipity of my own, I found this clip of Mike Malone being interviewed.
When I got involved in tattooing, it was still sort of a loose it wasn't all crowded up with tattoos. There was very few tattoos around. Tattooing wasn't as popular. And when we began tattooing, it was more of a kind of an apprenticeship situation, and you kind of humbled yourself before a teacher and tried to get him to show you as much as you could. And there wasn't as much information, so you had to do a lot of stuff for yourself. You had to be real. You had to be more inventive and resourceful. But now it's a regular profession. A young person that wants to tattoo merely has to go to his local magazine store and pick up one of how many tattoo magazines that are around. They're stuffed with ads for places where you can get great tattoos, places where you can buy good tattoo designs, places where you can buy decent tattoo equipment. I mean, it's all right there. The keys to the highway are all laid out now.
You might be thinking, wow, I feel exactly that way right now in 2024. And I could definitely pick out some comments from the last few weeks that are echoing this exact sentiment about right now. And I believe that this can feel true today, the same way that it felt true for Mike when he said it in 1991. That video clip is from.
When I started, it was kind of a minor folk art, and then it sort of became a major folk art, and now it's kind of going through a very awkward metamorphosis, moving towards maybe a real art. I mean, let's face it, there's gallery shows, books, I mean, it is starting to become a legitimate art, whatever that means.
The important sentiment that I took from this clip of Mike is that at any given point, we are just part of one little tiny blip of this long and robust history of tattooing. And it's part of a much longer progression that is inevitable, and it's wide-sweeping, and we're just part of this long history. I'd like to think that this show has given you things that you can point to that give you hope and excitement for where tattooing is today, as well as into the future. Are the good old days gone for good? Or have you just decided that yours have passed? I know that I'm trying to make sure that my good old days last forever.
But I think it's going to progress. I mean, these guys, Philip Blue, Dan Higgs, and Freddie Corbin, these new whiz kids, I think they're going to take it on into the 21st century in grand style. I don't see tattooing slowing down.
Yeah, those young whiz kid tattooers pushing the progression of tattooing. Philip Blue, Dan Higgs, Freddie Corbin. I guess Mike was definitely right about that one. Anyway, this episode I caught up with tattooer Dan Smith while he was on tour with the band 18 Visions. I've always been interested in the intersection between music and tattooing, since personally that was the clear roadmap for where I'm at in tattooing now. I started out as a musician. Everyone I ever looked up to was very heavily tattooed, and over time, my interest became laser focused on just the tattoo part and even less about their music. Dan has been a touring musician for just as long, probably longer than he's been a tattooer, so I think he is a perfect person to discuss this topic with. We also talk a bit about his experience on early tattoo reality TV as he was a featured artist on the series LA Ink. Dan was playing a show in Boston, so we recorded this in a room that was right next to a hardcore show happening. So I apologize for the background noise. I tried to EQ it out as much as I could, but what it leaves us with is our strained sounding voices as we screamed in each other's faces to hear over the music. So I apologize for that part, but what are you going to do? It's the rock and roll life, am I right? This episode also is sponsored by Afterlife Press. I'll tell you more about them later, but for now, let's throw it over to Dan Smith.
Okay, now that we've got some good background music, hopefully they're not so tight that it sounds enough like the album that I'll get claimed on YouTube, because then the whole thing's, it won't be. Right. They're not that tight.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's weird. You have to kind of think about that stuff these days, though, right? Like.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're here in a loud back room at a music venue, which this is a first for this podcast, I think. Usually
Great.
We're in tattoo shops.
I love that. I love that, because this type of setting has been my tattoo shop for a lot of my life.
Yes.
As well as my tattoo shop.
Yes, and that's why you're the guy to have this conversation with, because I wanted to talk about the intersection of music, tattooing, how those things are combined in your life, and I suspect they're probably a pretty twisted web throughout the course of your career.
Very much so. Safe to say that I probably wouldn't have gotten into tattooing if it wasn't for music. And as a young child, being kind of mesmerized mostly by bands with tattoos, I feel like that's my earliest memory of tattooing, is wanting to figure out why those musicians kind of had the tattoos that they had, what they were initially, and then like who did them.
Yeah.
So obviously there's a whole bunch of different scenes of music that have a lot of tattoos, right? There's the punk and the whole like skinhead and oi scene from England. That's kind of where I was probably most aware of it in the beginning as a young kid. And then, hair metal scene in LA and, you name it. So it's, yeah. I just, as I got into playing music, that was sort of the vehicle for me to travel. And in turn, I met tattooers, I collected tattoos. And then when I started tattooing, it was something I did backstage. It was something that, to this day, I have I'm lucky to have a really healthy clientele of musicians. And it's also turned into like being asked to do album covers or t-shirt designs. So for me personally, it's kind of everything.
Yeah.
Like that I can't have one without the other.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny to be comfortable with doing tattoos, which is a permanent thing on a person, which means everything to them. But still, to me, doing like an album cover seems way cooler. There's something like, maybe because it's larger, more culturally relevant.
Yeah.
It's just different.
I agree. I think maybe depending on your age, right? Because physical music now is a little different, even though there's been like a vinyl resurgence. For me, holding the record and looking and trying to figure out what's on that guy's forearm, or, that to me was the motivation that I wanted or needed to dive deeper into it.
Yeah.
So I would agree, I've done a few album covers, and I have the same outlook.
Yeah. So would you say if you're coming up tattooing and in settings like this where it's a little hectic, it's not the typical tattoo shop vibe, do you feel like it took you longer to get where you wanted to be with your tattooing, as far as there being distractions? Or do you think that experience was valuable and kind of keeping you on your toes, making you more adaptable?
I would say, even though it came with a lot of, I would say it bettered me as a tattooer, because, you first start at a street shop, you're kind of thrown in the deep end of like, you can't let anything leave the shop, you have to do it, right? When you're playing a show, it's very, like there's a tight schedule. So it's like if you have, an hour and a half before you have to load out or load in or sound check or whatever, you kind of have to get that tattoo done.
Yeah.
And it was really funny because yesterday we played a venue that I played probably about 12 or 13 years ago that flooded. Like the whole venue flooded to like waist-high water in New Jersey.
Yeah.
There was a huge river next to it and crazy storms that weekend. And I was tattooing in the backstage room. And like that door right there, the push open door, the push bar, someone pushed it open, and literally a wave came in the room. And I'm tattooing here like this, and I mean, there was 4 feet of water outside, and then it was all coming in the venue. So I basically had to just scoop up all my equipment into my Pelican case, lock it up, and then leave. I'm only saying that because we were there yesterday, but yeah, it's just time management, right? It's like you want to be able to do a tattoo in an efficient amount of time, and I think when you're on tour, that's stressed a little more, just because, I mean, there's time to kill, but sometimes there's kind of not. You have a few other obligations, so. But I just always took my equipment with me from day one, I just figured, like, I've met a lot of really close friends through music, and I've lived in 4 different countries played music the whole time since I was 15. So I've lived in the US for 22 years at this point, and lucky to have friends everywhere that I want a tattoo, or even just people that kind of know me and want tattoos. Yeah. So I feel like a little bit obligated in a way, but ultimately it's a pleasure,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's become a rite of passage for certain musicians or musicians in certain genres to get tattooed by you.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean,
I see certain people like, oh, my new tattoo, if they're in a band or whatever, I'm like, Dan did it. And then I hit more, and it's like, thanks, Dan.
It's funny, right? I mean, I don't know. I guess I am lucky to cross over a few different genres. I've definitely tattooed a few musicians that I never thought I would. But I think there's kind of that respect of like, well, he plays music and always has, so maybe
part of the tribe.
Yeah, exactly. A little more willing to take the risk on me, knowing I can play the bass or sing. I don't know.
So if you had to pick music or tattooing right now, could only do one thing for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Well, considering I've literally played music since I was like 15, and like I said, lived in a few different countries, I'm about to turn 45, so I'm choosing tattooing. I'm playing tonight with 18 Visions, and this is going to be my 7th show with them. A band I met 20-something years ago. They sort of welcomed us when we moved to Orange County. So there is like this cool appreciation and sort of obligation as well. And it's kind of easy with those guys because it's familiar and stuff. But music is... It's definitely difficult, it's difficult. I've had some of the hardest times of my life on tour. And tattooing to me has been such a personal thing that it's often when I've been kind of like going crazy with music, it's been the perfect disconnect from music, that it's just me and one other person, and it's so personal that it kind of it makes me, it balances everything out in a really great way for me. You know what I mean? So I adore tattooing for being there for me in those times. You know what I mean? I think it's a very special thing that, once you feel the magic, you can't not feel it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, and you can't not respect it. And I'm just lucky to have had a lot of those experiences where I'm just truly grateful for tattooing. Yeah. Even like, moving to the States over 20 years ago, my whole band moved here with empty suitcases. You know what I mean? Like we literally had that dream, had that sort of innocently naive dream, honestly. And if it wasn't for tattooing keeping me and everybody sort of afloat in that time, I don't know where we would be, because it got pretty dark about a year or two after we moved. We went from being sort of a bigger fish in a smaller pond to like the smallest fish in the biggest pond. Right. And life will get you whatever you're doing, but when you're making a move like that, it's again, I'm just truly grateful for tattooing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's not a lot of jobs that you could pair with this sort of lifestyle and it can actually benefit you.
Right.
You can't do like a plumber guest spot in the morning before the show. I mean, maybe you could. Traveling plumbers? Because plumbers never answer the phone. If you go to a town, pass out some cards at a coffee shop, you'll probably install some toilets.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You need to, take a list of however many blocked toilets are in the neighborhood and then just,
Or you go around and fuck them up. You flush a bunch of rocks down the toilet.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely also noticed, I grew up playing music, all that before tattooing the same way, and I think I grew tired of having to like find a group of like-minded people to play music, because there's always people in bands that are way more into it or way less into it, and it's hard to find that perfect group of people. As we all know, bands don't last forever. And I liked how tattooing was just up to me, and obviously the client, but it was up to me if I wanted to do a cool thing, and I liked that. Yeah. But now, coming back to playing music after I kind of stopped playing music for 15 years, and just in the last year I started playing again, and now I'm liking it for the opposite reason, where it's fun to play with people and to work with people and to do something less consequential, and there's not as much homework to it and pressure and all these things, and I feel like I'm having fun playing music for the first time ever now.
It's
which
really
is kind of
great.
crazy.
It's crazy because I know we were speaking about it before, but I kind of feel the same. Like, even though I've done a lot with music and I've traveled a lot, I think you don't really realize what you're doing until after you've done it, and then that can only kind of influence your decisions moving forward, and like I said, that move that we had from, I was living in Australia for a couple years, and that was the first shop that I worked in was Australia, and we moved to California. And it was just such a naive move, but like you got to roll with the punches. And like I said, like having tattooing to sort of pull you away from that. And it's such we're just lucky, you know what I mean? We're just so lucky to be able to do it. But yeah, it's, I feel the same with these guys now, like they're all sort of my age. They've gone through the ups and downs of life, and in music and tattooing, there will be ups and downs, and so it's kind of like being on the same page with someone is pretty cool. Yeah. And I think in music, there's often 4 or 5 creative minds, all kind of like fighting for. Ultimately, it's just progression, but everybody has a different idea of progression, like. The goal is always on the horizon, but then when you get to that horizon, there's still a horizon, you know what I mean? So I know I'm kind of maybe guilty of maybe buying into that a little too much and not really being in the moment. If anything, I'm looking back at that going like, I could have enjoyed those things a little more, but also I know I wouldn't sort of be where I'm at. Without taking those risks and stuff. So, well,
part of the experience is pushing yourself and reaching for the next rung, and even if you look back on it and think that it would have been better if you chilled a little bit, that wasn't the experience that you had, so it could have been different.
Yeah, and that's why I said I choose tattooing now, because I sort of made a decision a few years back to not do conventions anymore and really just be at the shop and really just just try to trim the fat a little bit and simplify and really just kind of dive into the parts of tattooing that I've always loved, but maybe have been a little spread too thin to really like truly appreciate, So, we're all a work in progress, but I feel pretty happy where I'm at.
Yeah.
And now a quick word from this episode's sponsor. Afterlife Press has just released Volume 4 of their flagship Afterlife Volumes series. Volume 4 features powerhouse tattooers Henning Jorgensen and Mike Rubendall. These books are a must-have for tattooers and collectors alike, as they are works of art in themselves. 400 pages of interviews with both artists and stunning high-res images of their work are accompanied by letters from other industry legends and friends who they have inspired. The standard and special editions of Afterlife Volume 4 are available for order now at afterlifepress.com. The special edition has a fancy gold stamped cover with a slipcase and signed prints from each artist. If you're outside the US, you can order through Conan Publishing in Europe and Black Claw in the UK and Australia while supplies last. Don't miss the other great publications from Afterlife Press, including Enjoy by Austin Maples, 3 issues of Disintegration, their modern-day tattoo magazine, Drawings for Tattoos, Chris O'Donnell, Volume 1, and of course, their newest stencil series books, with the first, available for order this month, featuring the work of Luciano Calderon, 175 pages of stencils and pictures from his private library. Find all of these amazing publications at afterlifepress.com.
Have you ever felt pressure from people for you to maybe tattoo in a way that isn't exactly what you want to be from, like, because some people are like, hey, it's the TV guy, hey, it's the musician guy, hey, it's this guy that I know from this other thing. But, I mean, you have tattoos that you like and styles that you want to pursue, and maybe that it wasn't always aligned with what the clientele that was desperate to get tattooed by you was asking for.
Sure.
How did you deal with that? Or did you deal with it?
You know what? I think because I truly love all aspects of tattooing, it was never really that I was doing something I didn't want to do. The TV thing was like a different thing in itself, you know what I mean? There was a lot of compromise and navigating that in different ways. But I think as far as a career goes, I legitimately love doing something super bold and traditional or something super fine line and tricky and technical. I love all of it. And I think it was probably the guys that kind of brought me up and working in a couple of those shops where it was like, you know, you can't let anything leave and you have to be able to do your best at every single style, you know? Like, it's not like that now, and it is what it is. But to this day, I still get off on doing all the different kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
I think in reality it is still like that for like, I think now that I've been tattooing a certain amount of time, I think more about the future and longevity and like how can I do this forever? I don't want this to ever end. And I feel like right now I've had a couple years where I've been doing some projects in and around tattooing that I'm like super excited and I'm on fire for stuff and I feel super good, like better than I felt in a long time.
Yeah.
It's like, how can I keep this going? But I also know that's the same way, just loving doing any little tattoo or anything. I think that's kind of the key to longevity, not resenting your customers, not resenting your coworkers, all that stuff. That's the shit that makes people go crazy and like want to leave the shop and move on and start over and move to a new town. And
I agree. I think the number one rule is be appreciative and grateful for your client, no matter what they're wanting. You know what I mean? Like, I've had so many people who I've tried to get them to get a portrait from one of the 1,000, you know, even in Southern California, amazing portrait artists.
Yeah.
They're like, no, we want you to do it. And I'm like, well, I do portraits, but I'm super picky. I only really want to do it if it's a specific kind of picture, and you know, yeah, we want you. And it's like, okay, like, and that's because, I mean, I like to think it's just because of it's the connection, the personal connection.
Yeah.
You know, I've, you know, it's funny, like I did the TV thing and obviously that was broadcast all over the world. So it's like, I was tattooing on tour before that, and every person in between both ends of the spectrum, you know what I mean? It's like tattooing an 18-year-old girl's first tattoo because the family saw me on TV, and I'm tattooing bikers and gang, you know, and it's like, and I love it. I love that, you know?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
I feel like you were spared from the bad opinions of the TV show people more than anybody.
I mean, I
Why do
definitely
you
had
think
some
that
bad
is?
opinions, but
I'm sure you
for
did.
the most part I was. And you know what?
Because I feel like people are like super critical of like all the original like Miami Ink crew, people that came after. But I've heard people be like, but Dan's different. Like, Dan's cool because
That's cool.
ABC.
Well,
You dodged the bullet.
I don't know how. I mean, if anything was premeditated, it was like when I got the opportunity to do it, I wanted to show different people getting tattoos than the memorial piece.
Yeah.
And at that point, I toured forever. I knew a bunch of different people doing cool things. So I really fought to have my friends, musicians, artists on the show. And I kind of definitely stayed out a lot of the drama.
Yeah.
Which at that point was a lot of it was kind of doctored and just like cut and pasted and edited.
Right.
So it was kind of a trip, but I don't know. Tattooing's all about people, man. It's all about the experience. You could do a bad tattoo on someone. If you give them a great experience, they're gonna love you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do that all the time. Just kidding. Just kidding.
It's a windy road, you know?
It certainly is.
You have to navigate it the best you can, and that's all anyone can do.
Yeah.
And it's like people who have these like outrageous opinions on people, it's just like, have you never tried to do anything yourself? Like, it's just
I think that all the time.
It's just you. Someone else got a different opportunity and you didn't. Like, they're just trying to get through it. I mean, with the TV thing, I guess you can kind of see the people who are using it for something from a mile off, I think.
Yeah.
But
I think it's all fair game.
yeah,
I think everything's fair game.
It's just easy to have an opinion on someone if you didn't get the opportunity.
Right.
You know, and it's like that in music. Like, oh, that band blew up and that band's sold out and that band. It's like, yeah, what the hell else are they gonna do? Like, they're living their dream, and this is the windy road that comes along with that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, again, if it's for shitty reasons or it's you know what I mean? Like, you can see that there's bands out there that do that. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
But bands that come from sort of like the underground or where we come from, or at least have put in a ton of work, it's not easy, you know? It's like they should be able to move up a little bit without criticism from a lot of people, you know what I mean?
I agree. And people never see the work that people put in behind the scenes for music, art, for anything. And it's easy to make judgments on it, but yeah, totally. Yeah, anytime anyone has like such a hardline negative feeling about anything, I just wonder, is that a person who's ever put themselves out there, ever tried to do a thing and knows what it takes to do something, even to do something that sucks, it still takes a lot of work, and to be like, that fucking sucks, that's so shitty. Yeah. It's so lame, and that just shows that person has, I don't know, it's always self-reflective. It's like self-reporting when people when people key in on one specific thing about what they perceive of you, and they're like, you fucking do this really bad, and it's like, you know that they constantly think about how they do that thing, and that's why they're perceptive of it.
It's the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Yeah. But it's funny too about how we all get used to what's okay, what's acceptable, what's honorable, and specifically in tattooing, the TV shows. Looking back to those earlier TV shows, they're actually pretty sick. When you go back and watch like first seasons of Miami Ink, and you can see Chris Garver doing like sick tattoos on people and talking about it and showing stuff, and I'm sure that's what people didn't like about it at the time. Yeah. Compared to now, where we've like run full course, we're in late stage tattoo reality TV, where I think it's actually kind of dead finally. Like it took that long to run its course. Yeah. And to look back, and everyone that got the most shit to today's standards made a pretty cool show on like a major cable network.
For sure. And why was it so popular though? One, it was amazing quality tattoos. And two, it was the people. It was the connection. It was the stories that these people were telling. Sure, in the beginning, a lot were memorial pieces, which is a huge part of life and our job too, right? So we can't hate on it. But again, that's why I chose to try to, you know, push people who, or have people who have really pushed in life at whatever they choose to do. And not just the generic kind of same old story. And I think that really resonated with people at that time. Yeah. You know, I think it was a little shift in that style of TV show. Yeah. You know? So,
yeah. People are just hungry for tat stuff. Did you ever see that show on CMT that was like Diet Ink Master?
It was what?
It was like a shittier Diet Ink Master. It was called Tattoo Titans.
No, I didn't.
It was so bad.
I didn't.
But I wanted to go on it, and I think it had ended by the time I saw it, because they only did 3 tattoos, and then they won like 10 grand or something. And they had the worst tattooers on there, to the point where I almost thought the whole thing was fake. It was peculiar. But I remember watching it thinking, like, I might be able to win that. And I would tattoo for a day for the chance of winning 10 grand. That'd be sick.
You just wouldn't read the comments?
There are no comments. It's TV.
Well, but there's comments on, like, I mean, you know, when I did the TV show, it was just as Twitter started.
Oh, fuck.
So I remember having like a Twitter account. There was like 1,000 people on there or something.
You're like, wow, this will be neat.
The first episode, I shot up to like 100,000 people, and it was just like comments from all corners of the globe, you know. And I'm like, well, buckle up. This is going to be interesting.
And it's weird as a tattooer to get feedback like that, because 99% of it is from people who don't tattoo, so they have all sorts of crazy opinions.
Right.
But it's hard to ignore that. How did you find you internalize that or not?
I sort of did. Well, I like to say that I didn't. I mean, not 100%, but I didn't really care. Like I'd moved 3 countries at this point to pursue music and tattooing, and it's something that I've kind of like to stick to from a young age, which is just like, I mean, call it punk ethos or upbringing or something. It's just like, I'm doing what I'm gonna do. Like, I don't really care. I wasn't on Twitter a lot. It's like, I'm not gonna read these comments, really. Yeah. I'm not gonna take it to heart. You know what I mean? It's definitely not gonna stop me from doing what I'm gonna do, or make me think twice about it. The way I saw it, I come from a super small, shitty town in New Zealand, you know, West Auckland, shitty but amazing, you know. Yeah. It's the double-edged, typical, very small, isolated town, you know, beautiful, but has that sort of element of despair and what's the word? Isolation. So it's like, in my mind, I always wanted to leave and see the world, and some of the decisions I made, without looking back, I wouldn't have even gotten the opportunity to tattoo, let alone get asked to be on a TV show. Not that that's the be all and end all, but when it came time to say yes or no, I just thought about where I come from, and I'm like, am I the guy to say no and then tell everybody, yeah, I turned it down, cool, right? And then the next guy does it? Or am I just going to do it and navigate it? Navigate that windy road, figure it out. Yeah. Like, I'll take the trip. I'll take the journey. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, I feel like coming from a music background, it's definitely a no-brainer, because being in a band, it's all about promoting your music and promoting yourself and putting it all out there. And it seems to me it would be surprising if you in that position hadn't taken that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't really see anything else to do. You know, I'd worked with Kat before she did Miami Ink. And I was on tour a whole lot, and she kept asking me to come to the shop, and I didn't really even get that she was asking me to come and work, you know, because music was always my priority. But like I said before, just always so grateful that tattooing was sort of, it lifted me up, and it lifted the idea of being in a band and traveling. It lifted that up too. It made it a little more realistic. Financially, and it just made it possible. So to me, I was like, you know what? If I can get the dude who I looked up to my whole life in tattooing on the show, and that's it, I'll do it. And I did that. You know what I mean? So it's little things like that, man. So that's what life is. Like, you get opportunities, you got to say yes, you got to do them, figure it out.
How do you see your tattoo career going from here, as far as maintaining, and are there things you want to do, things you feel like you haven't been able to do yet? What's left, or is it over? Are you ready to hang it up?
Definitely not ready to hang it up, but I am dealing with the aches and pains of a 23 year, 24 year tattooer.
Yeah. Do you stretch?
I mean, I stretch, especially on this tour. It's freezing, so I feel like I'm like a rubber band that's kind of like been stretched out. That's freezing. You know what I mean?
This is cold.
Well, I live in. We just had a heat wave. It was like 110 last week.
So it's probably a nice break from that.
It is a nice break. But yeah, stretching is a must. I don't know. I just moved my shop, Captured Tattoo. I've had it for nearly 12 years, and I was just able to take over a beautiful historic building in Tustin, California. It was the first post office and city hall of Tustin, so a lot of history, and I've just been diving into it this whole year, and obviously building out the shop. We've been open for a few months, and I'm just really ready to just be at the shop as much as I can, and just kind of dive deep into it. As you know, more than I've been able to in the last few years. You know, so I
think it's refreshing to get a new space.
Oh, it's so refreshing,
it's like the same
man.
job, but there's something about being in a new space. You just want to be there. You just want to be hanging out, and work doesn't feel like work as much.
Like, you know, you looked at the same flash for years at the old shop, or same paintings, and you change it up, and I don't know. It's just time for me. I've never lacked enthusiasm for tattooing or passion for it. It's just time management, you know. I keep busy, so it's just trying to squeeze it all in. So my decision to like not do conventions anymore was really based around just wanting to be home with my wife a lot more. You know, I've toured with music and definitely toured a lot with tattooing forever, the whole time we've been together. So I just want to be home more. Just get better, man. Get better at tattooing, you know? That's always been the plan. Add a link to the chain.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like the more you can build at home, that's like something to lean on that means more than anything. Like chasing it out in the world, it's cool to go to any city and have a list of people that want to get tattooed by you, but you have to chase it forever. If you have that at home, to me, that's like the retirement plan, in that you can be home and continue tattooing.
I couldn't agree more. You nailed it. That's exactly how I feel. And like having the shop for 11 years, we were still definitely part of the community, but we were around the corner, and it's kind of really crazy that now we're on the main street. We're like really part of the community, you know? So our town's cool. It has a lot of cool little like markets and farmers markets, night markets, like parades and like different celebrations. So it's like we're front and center now on Main Street, you know? So it's pretty cool. It's meant that I've had to step up in a bunch of different ways, but I'm ready for it, and it's cool. I'm really grateful, and it's super like rewarding. You know?
How did you like becoming a boss when you first opened the shop? What was that dynamic like?
I wouldn't say I like being a boss, but same with music. I've always had like a pretty clear vision of what I want to do.
Control freak.
Control freak is another name for that. Yeah, another way to say that. No, but it's like, I don't know, man. Again, the windy road, people are going to come along that don't really gel with that. And if they do in the beginning, maybe they don't after a few years, and that's fine. I think it's just a matter of just dealing with it when you can in the right way. You know, we're all creative. We're all a bit nuts. You know what I mean?
Some more than others.
Some a lot more than others. I am too, you know, like totally. So I don't know. I think as long as you're conscientious, your heart's in the right place, you want to do the best for the shop, tattooing, and your crew. Don't overthink it. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Covered it.
Do you have any messages you want to deliver to the tattoo community? They've been asking.
What have they been asking? About what?
You don't want to know.
Yeah. I probably don't. I see
Tell them how it is.
I see the tattoo community now as
break their heart.
The broadest thing ever, right? Like it's just skyrocketed into like so many different things.
Yeah. Is it for the best or for the worst?
I think
you're gonna say both. I know you're gonna say both.
No.
That's the kind of guy you are.
No. I think. I don't know. I mean, everybody's got a different path, right? I think the oil separates from the water for sure. I think tattooers have a responsibility, and I wished more tattooers had that responsibility or felt that. You know, I've been teaching someone for the first time for the last couple of years. So I'm kind of more like tuned into the responsibility now more than ever, because I never thought I would really do it. Right. But when you care about something, you want to do it right. And often the people that don't gel with that don't really care if it's right or wrong, right? Yeah. So the pushback that you get is often needed or beneficial because it means those people aren't right. So I don't know. I would say just do right by it, you know?
Yeah.
Do right by it.
It's tough because that means different things to different people, I guess. And I feel like things have rapidly changed in the last few years specifically. Maybe the biggest change that I've experienced in my time tattooing, I feel like the last few years, I feel like the toothpaste is out of the tube in a lot of ways. And that's not to say that tattooing's over or the good old days
We're
are
using
behind
toothpaste
us.
now? I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, well, we're just shooting it out of the tube to make a point.
For like aftercare or...
Yeah, put the stencil on.
Oh.
When you run out of speed stick.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting to see. And even thinking back to when I started this podcast, the conversations I'm having now are like way different. And the things I'm curious about and the things I'm asking about, it's different. And I don't even know what I'm getting at anymore.
Well,
but I'm trying to figure it all out.
I don't know, man. I feel like it's a long road, but if you don't take those liberties of making those decisions, sometimes the beautiful things won't come your way. Like the Philip Lou thing that you did. Totally amazing. Like,
Thanks.
you should be so proud, you know? And it's like, you wouldn't have had that happen if you didn't take the initiative or take the opportunity to do this.
If I didn't make dumb YouTube videos with tattoos drawn on my face.
But Philip Lou thinks they're amazing. So are they dumb, or are they the haters that are saying, oh, they're dumb? You know what I mean?
They're
like,
still dumb, but yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, so yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've had a couple of situations the same as well, you know, and it's like, take that leap of faith, you know, just don't be a dick.
Yeah.
And it'll turn out fine.
It's just tattoos.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a huge ego industry, you know what I mean? So I think just keep a level head. Don't lose your cool, you know?
Do you think it's always been an ego thing?
Yeah.
Like 1978. Maybe more so then, because it was like territories and...
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, I think you kind of almost had to have an ego back then because it was part of the whole sales pitch, right? Best in town. We're the best in town. But every shop has best in town. What do you know? Like, you got to outdo everybody. But I don't know. I think I've met enough legendary, like much older tattooer, like sweethearts, to know that everything I've done is A-okay. You know what I mean? Like to get the green light from, you know, some of the older guys who are just absolute sweethearts, Bill Salmon, George Bone, you know, these kinds of artists.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it's easy to get wrapped up in the ego or the attitude of like everything has to be salty and bitter and you know, but there's some very deep, compassionate, amazing tattooers that are with us and are sadly not with us.
Yeah.
That, you know, have been a fan of what me and you have done, which on paper shouldn't really happen, right?
Right.
So you just have to be grateful.
Well, hey, that's all I got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you going to be up the front tonight? Are you going to dive off a speaker or?
Yeah, I'm going to be head walking the whole time till they kick me out.
Okay, cool.
I wore my Mosh Birkenstocks.
What if you lose one of those?
That's why I got two.
Perfect.
All right, Dan, thanks.
Was that okay?
It was great. It's fantastic.
It's a pleasure. Keep it up, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for doing
Stoked
this.
to run into you in Boston, Massachusetts right now.
I know. I couldn't let the opportunity pass me up, being an hour south of me.
Right.
It's pretty nice.
Thanks for driving out. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, I want to see 18 Visions, too.
Yeah.
And Walls of Jericho. This is like reliving my high school years
on
again.
In 5 minutes, I think.
This is fantastic.
Cool.
All right. Thanks, man.
You got it.
If you like content like this, please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Throw a thumbs up on this one, a 5-star rating, whatever you can do. All of it is goofy, but it helps other people find the show. And that, in turn, helps me continue to make the show. So I appreciate all of the support. I will be back in a week for another episode of Books Closed, and I will see you then.